Greetings and salutations, all you beautiful people, and welcome to another episode of Art of the Beholder, a show dedicated to all things eclectic in the world of art, where we do deep dives into deep cuts and help you understand why damn things matter. I'm your host, Novo Day, and today we're going to be talking about art in film and filmmaking by discussing the budding career, emphasis on budding, of artist David Lowery. To hash it out, I am going to introduce a new guest today, a Mr. Ryan Selvey. He's a freelance videographer, film enthusiast, and yes, our spirit guide for the episode. Not a fox, but a man. You can check him out on his Instagram, eatc.films, and you can get a hold of him, check out his services. If you want to give him a shout, please do so. Ryan, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, what up, man? How you doing?
I am good. I'm excited. I've been, oh my God, I've been binging on Lowery for a
Yeah.
week. I've done one movie a day for this entire week for this show. Did my homework, did my research. I'm bursting. We have to talk about him.
Absolutely. Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Oh my God. Okay, so why? Let's give the good people a little background. Why are we talking about David Lowery today? So he is, and Ryan, if you got something to say here, this is a perfect segue before our introduction to his background, because he's really a part of a new generation of filmmakers that really toes this line between art house and like old-fashioned blockbuster. Like if you were to put him on like a matrix, like the where the lines intersect is a little bit of art house, a little bit of traditional filmmaking, a la the blockbuster, but of course he leans on the art house, and he does so fucking masterfully.
Yeah, yeah. His out heart house look is, I think, to me, a much bigger sign of who he is than his blockbuster side. Yeah, I think his skill and his talent with his writing and his editing and his directing has brought him, straight to the big box office films and
Mhm.
working with big production companies. But his vision on screen is, I think, why we're here talking about him and why you've talked about him in other episodes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's great is, we've talked about this before in other shows, like he's still kind of in the middle, maybe even like beginning middle of his career. So I'm
Yeah.
so excited to see what else he does. So guys, we're just going to be talking about, so full disclaimer, we're going to be talking, if you actually look up this guy, if you've never heard about him before, you'll see on something like Wikipedia or IMDb, he actually has a long set of credentials. He's done a lot of stuff, from being a writer, producer, EP, editor. But we want to focus today on what I would call his babies, which is where he got to write and direct the film. So it's completely, obviously as a team behind him, but it's definitely his vision, his project to really take creative lead on. But before we can discuss, of course, we need a little background. So David Lowery was born on December 26th, 1980 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. At the age of 19, he wrote and directed his first short, and that is called Lullaby. And the rest, as they say, is history. He's been working in the film industry ever since. Now, Lowery's first traditional feature was a film called Saint Nick, which follows two runaway children abandoned by their guardians. Jesus Christ, I tried so hard,
Yeah.
Ryan, to
Yeah.
find I tried so hard to find his original work before Ain't Them Body Saints, but I could not find it anywhere. Have you
Yeah.
had any luck?
No luck. That was actually what I wanted to watch after I revisited Ain't Them Body Saints. And I was like, you know what? Let me get to Saint Nick. Nah. Nah, it is in the ether somewhere. You'd have to go to his house to find that thing.
And he actually, if you look at his filmography too, 2005, he did a movie called Dead Room too, where he wrote, directed, and edited, did everything. But I feel like, I guess he gets a little more notoriety for Saint Nick. So I did try to look for Dead Room too, with, again, no avail, like absolutely no luck. So we're going to start with Ain't Them Body Saints today. And to do so, I do want to say this before we actually dive in. So in 2011, too, this guy wears so many goddamn hats.
Yeah.
I mean, he started his own production company called Sailor Bear, and that same year he wrote and directed a short film called Pioneer. Whereas in 2013 he had his breakout, and this is again where we're going to be starting our discussion with "Ain't Them Body Saints." This is technically his second feature, but before we do so, a little word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by the novel The Entropy Sessions, a tale of loss, love, and madness in our past, present, and future relationships with technology. Find it on Amazon and as an audiobook through Audible. Your support helps us continue our journey. Now back to the show. So we're going to start, as I already said, with Ain't Them Body Saints, 2013. I want to just give a quick synopsis about the story, and then I'm going to give Mr. Ryan the floor again. So, Ain't the Body Saints tells the story of Bob Muldoon, played by Casey Affleck, and Ruth Guthrie, played by Rooney Mara. It's what I would call a neo Western about an outlaw couple that answers pretty much this question: what happens to Bonnie and Clyde after all the bank robberies, all the fucking takedowns, all the car chases, and when their past finally catches up with them?
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely agree with you there on that. It was definitely a Bonnie and Clyde after. They didn't die that horrible,
Post.
horrible shootout that went down in history, but kind of they got away with it. But you don't get away with stuff like that.
Yeah, what was the first thing that stood out to you?
Oh, the first thing that stood out to me was its low light, its low light scenes.
Yes,
I
abso-fucking-lutely.
mean, there's tons of them. Even the daylight scenes. There's a lot of low light scenes. Not jumping too far in the film, but he kind of revisits that broken down barn where Ben Foster's character is pretty sure he's in the building, and he decides not to go up into a very ominous attic where our lead character is sitting there with a shotgun. He would have definitely. And man, you want to talk about sweating bullets? When it got to that movie really gave you a low intensity that kind of held over everyone's character. Like, is this person going to die now? Is this person going to get it? Um, but you know what else this movie did very well? It introduced this love story between them two, and
I actually put that in my outline. Like, I feel like at the core of this movie is a love
yeah,
story. And I feel like there's incredible chemistry between what I would call, like filmmakers do this all the time. They get their guy or they get their gal and then they reuse them in films over and over again. And Casey Affleck is the guy. It's his go-to actor.
yeah.
And to a lesser extent, I would say Rooney Mara is, because we saw them again in A Ghost Story, which we'll get to here in a minute. But yeah, the cinematography was the first thing that touched me. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ. The framing and how he would use, I would say, a lot of natural day, lighting too as
Yeah, it
well.
seemed like it was very natural lit. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes when you have a production team that is doing so well at lighting stuff. You can't tell, but I really think with the very very open shots, especially with them at the shootout at the beginning of the movie, I felt like that was all natural and practical lighting. Setting that tone and setting the mood cinematically for what began and kickstarted the film.
Yeah, no, you're our resident film expert now. So if you want to nerd out on just lighting for like 5 minutes, please do so. I know our audience, if they're anything like us deep divers, they're gonna be like, yes, they finally touched on the lighting for 5 minutes.
Well, the thing that was, I saw what's Daniel Day Lewis's last, not to veer off too much, but Daniel Day
No,
Lewis's
no,
last,
Levere,
the
Veer.
Phantom
Phantom
Thread.
Thread. Yeah, Phantom
So
Thread.
Phantom Thread, I read, is like almost all natural light.
Oh shit, okay.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm sure that is, there's some studio lights going on in there, but you can almost tell by how soft everything kind of looks, and how natural light kind of bounces off of things. I've been on some sets before, and I've seen huge, huge, huge like soft boxes go up to basically recreate natural light when there's tons of natural light everywhere. But you got to get that certain look. Cameras lenses aren't our eyes yet, and hopefully they'll never be.
And that's probably like a pre-gym gem of the week, because Paul Thomas Anderson, I'm a huge fan of his work, and he's kind of like a David Lowery.
Yeah.
He's kind of in that same camp of filmmaker where they definitely lean more on the art house side of their artistic choices. And yeah, that's a perfect comparison for this kind of episode. Oh my
Yeah.
god, yes. So I when we talk about film in our episodes, there's a lot of things that we can touch on, and like we talked about in the pre-show. I mean, we could some of these movies we could talk about for an entire hour. Definitely the last one, because there's always plot versus dialogue versus characters, cinematography, color, lighting, wardrobe, set design, theme, symbolism, and messages, right? And that's outside of special effects and all of the other thing that make the movie magic, right?
Right.
So I did want to touch on before we move on to Pete's Dragon. What a 180 in his
Yeah. Yeah.
filmography. God,
Yeah.
is the plot. Let's do plot, dialogue, and characters a little bit. So the plot is very simple when you get right down to it. And since he writes his own pieces, I will say this about his writing style and choice. It is simple. It's deceptively simple though, and I think where he really shines is with his monologues. And when Casey Affleck's character talks about the fact that he thinks of him as the devil, but that
Mm.
he turned into a man one day, I felt like that was powerful. That really hit me, and it really creates this mythos to the characters that he wanted to create and the archetype that is the Bonnie and Clyde character, right? Is there anything that really stuck out to you in terms of those kind of that trinity of things, plot, dialogue versus characters?
So, I actually have to say the opposite. Now,
Ooh, ooh, no, no, I
not
like
that
this.
it's bad in any way, because it's not. It's fantastic, and it's
Are you
super
talking about the
well.
writing is not bad?
I think yes, yes, yes. To be clear, I think them with his monologues. I think the things that really push the story, but push the emotion, is the bouts of silence that he puts in his character,
Yeah.
the quietness that his characters bring, that we will definitely see in A Ghost Story. But
Oh my god, yeah, half
but
the movie is
the half the
even
movie
more,
is silent, right?
75%, yeah.
Exactly, but he does that, and I was looking for that when I rewatched Ain't Them Body Saints. Is there are a lot of times where Casey Affleck's character is kind of in thought a lot. Even Ben
Yeah,
Foster's character is in thought a lot, and it pushes so much when the dialogue does come. I feel like it is pushed by that silence, that these words mean something, and that's when that devil line came across. I was like, "Oh, this is great."
it really landed hard.
Oh, it hit hard, but it also landed really well, and there was a callback to it, and the dying scene was also the scene of life when he was laying on her lap, speaking
Yeah,
into the unborn baby of theirs, and I thought that circle, that circle that brought from him laying in her lap for his last moments, and him laying in her lap talking about how life is going to be good and great, and how he was also content. I think for the only two times in that film, he was content on screen on those two times, with death in front of his baby and life in his wife's stomach. And I thought that it just hit hard.
guys, again, anybody listening, this is why I like to talk about different mediums, because at the end of the day, film or TV or whatever it is a visual medium. That's why there is, so I definitely respect, like I respectfully disagree kind of point, because I feel like this is a little different though. Just to piggyback back off of your point, is this is probably a masterclass in direction, whereas probably we see this a lot in film where the original script isn't always going to end up in the final cut.
Absolutely.
Because when we get into the editing phase of films, if something's not working, or they have to create emotion or the drama or the comedy, depending on the genre of the film and the tone,
Right.
a lot of those we want the actors to act, right? We want to feel that sympathy and that empathy. We want to be in their shoes, and sometimes we don't need any dialogue, right? We just need to see them emoting and kind of fall into the world that is the narrative or the plot. So yeah, well put. I think that's an excellent place to move on to the 180 that is Pete's Dragon. This is 2016. This is a Disney Disney IP, and the again, just a quick synopsis. It tells the story of an orphaned feral boy who befriends a dragon on his quest to find a family he once lost. It stars Bryce Dallas Howard, Oaks Fegley, Wes Bentley, Carl Urban, Una Lawrence, and Robert Redford. Put a pin on Robert Redford because he's going to come up again
Yeah,
later.
yeah.
But Pete's Dragon is again, God, I where should we start? I want to kind of start with the cinematography again. David Lowery, he makes beautiful looking movies.
He does. He makes beautiful looking movies, and it seems to be kind of effortlessly. He might be pulling
Well, I
his
said deceptive. Like his dialogue is deceptive. Like everything seems like it's very easy, but I we
yeah.
know it's not. It's so
No,
hard.
no. The way the movie looks, the way he shot, once again, a lot brighter than Ain't Nobody Saints, but still it seems dark scenes. There were some dark scenes in the home, and I think he just
Or
knows
in the
how
cave
in the
and the
cave, he just knows how to work the camera and the lens around low lit situations that are very, and I think almost specifically David Lowery's.
Yeah, he's creating his own what we call a cinematic language, right? That every great director kind of has their style and their look. And now that he's really getting into it more and more, and I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but when we talk about the last film to date, there's actually we may have another film in 2022 by the release of this episode.
Mhm.
But the last release to date, I feel like really puts so many of those together, and we really see this David Lowery signature, right? But just, I mean, the things that I highlighted is plot, characters. Of course, we already talked about cinematography, special effects, color versus lighting, which is kind of cinematography. We already said, and of course, the message of the film. So let's switch gears to special effects. I actually watched this one with my wife, and she was the first thing that she noticed. She was like, it's funny to even think about. She kind of was kind of yelling at the screen. Her stage name that I've given her is TV Del Rio. So TV Del Rio was yelling, "Dragons don't have fucking fur; they have scales." Like she would just like made it a big point. Like it really bothered her. And I was like, "Honey, this is a children's film. They because like the dragon to me, I don't know. Tell me what you thought, but to me, it was like a puppy, like a dog. And I think that's why they make that illusion in the story version that Elliot, since he gives the dragon's name or he names the dragon Elliot, but in the dog in that story, it's Elliot too, right?
And there's also a scene where, Elliot literally
Yeah.
sees her tail and chases it for a while. I mean, it is, for all purposes, a dog from the and if I didn't already know from it's an old show.
Yeah, it's an old show and it was a musical. They did do a film version. You can watch the old version as well. I think on Disney Plus, something like that, but it was a musical once as well.
Right, right, and for all intents and purposes, if I wouldn't have already known what was going to happen, I would have thought it was all in the kid's head initially, the kind of the way it was.
I'm so glad you brought this up. I did the same
Yeah, the
thing.
the the
Yeah.
way it was shot and it, the way the dragon was around and not around. Now, when he started knocking trees down, I was like, "Oh, okay, he's here, he's real." There's no way.
Or when he used that, like, camouflage ability where he could turn himself invisible, I
Exactly.
thought, "Is this in his head?" That's when
Is
it
it
really started to.
exactly. The
Right.
the camouflage thing was like, okay, well, this is a manifestation of, the book, loneliness, being by himself,
Losing
whatever
his
it is.
family, yeah.
Losing his family and all that. But as far as plot and story, if we can slide
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
that
no,
way,
no, no,
I think plot and
please.
story was pretty run of the mill.
Very straightforward, yes.
Very straightforward, and it's a
Nothing
Disney film, nothing really to write home about.
nothing new.
Exactly, but I do like certain things. I do like, subtleness of Robert Redford kind of bringing, truth to the dragon, kind of out of the gate. I don't love, what's his name? Played Bones in Star Trek. I know you just said
Oh,
that.
Carl Urban.
Carl Urban. I didn't love. I know there had to be an antagonist,
Yeah.
to kinda push it along,
To
but
create the drama.
they
Yeah, of course.
create the drama and stuff like that, but, they didn't make him too nefarious, which I did like, because, I mean, they coulda just blown like, shot the guy, you know what I mean? Shot the thing, but I did like the Bryce's character. She really, really, really put a subtleness in this, and you knew kind of when she came in, oh, this may be the mom.
Oh,
And,
definitely. Oh, she has a
uh,
sweetness to
she
her.
has a sweetness, and she is gorgeous.
Easy on the eyes. Very easy on the eyes. My god, yeah. We don't have to focus on that in this show, but
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I do think that for the overall film, it's probably
Mhm.
my least favorite one that he's got going.
Okay.
Um,
Why?
it just was, other than what he did behind the lens, it was edited well. The dragon, I did like the fur aspect, to be honest. I know wifey is
We need
not
to do a
gonna
show,
agree.
me, you, and TV Del Rio. We could argue just
Yeah,
about the
I know
fur scales for dragons. I'd
T
like that.
yeah, TV I know TV Del Rio hated it, but, I actually like the furnace because it gave a very, not just on the dog aspect, I did like the fact that it gave an he could touch him and you could see it.
Yeah. Yeah, it made him a little more real.
A little more real, a little more relatable, and a little more likable because I think, Pete's Dragon didn't look cool in any iteration. This one, the old one, I wasn't a huge fan of the way the dragon looked from the get go. So scales, no scales.
It
That was
still
probably the
looked a
worst.
little cartoonish,
Yeah,
but I think that was, we live in this age of we have enough special effect, we have enough advanced technology, I should say it that way, that if they wanted to make it look more real, they could have. But because this was a family film, I think they really wanted to pull it back. And I let me piggyback on the question why and say, as artists, sometimes the old saying, I'm going to do one for me and then I'm going to do one for them. Do you feel
yeah,
like there's maybe a part of that with
absolutely,
this?
absolutely. I definitely, and no slight or any kind of a shade on Lowry.
We
I
got to
mean,
play the game,
play the game, make the
Yeah, I
money,
want
make the film
we
because
got to have a career,
he
right? Yeah.
didn't make a bad film.
No.
It's not a bad movie. It's
It's
this he
technically good, but not it doesn't hold a candle to his other films,
no,
essentially.
no,
Right.
or any other. To be honest, like any other.
It's proficient. Maybe that's a nice way to
Yes, that's perfect. That's perfect. But once again, we were talking about characters being characters, not actors or crew being recycled. Daniel Hart, that was to me the composer. Daniel Hart, that was one of his best. I think the music though is really what stood out and really to me helped bring the visuals and made Pete's Dragon a little more palatable in my opinion. Not that the film is bad. Once again, just a simple fact that once again it was fan service. I think
We've talked about this in our other shows where music can elevate a film beyond anything it maybe its initial vision served, because the most famous example is et. When you take out a lot of the music from et, it's kind of boring, honestly. But yeah, stuff like this can really elevate it. So yeah, I think we touched on the main things I want to touch on for Pete's Dragon. Still, guys, still give it a watch.
yeah.
Don't like I think it's important for his filmography,
Mhm.
because again, I think when we get to the conclusion section of this piece, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about him finding his identity as a filmmaker and him finding his style. And part of that process is to have things like this. They don't always, they're not gonna maybe win all the accolades, and it's not gonna be every artist's favorite art house film or whatever. But it's important for the evolution of the craft, in my opinion, where like people still have to practice, the craft and be better.
Yeah,
So
I'm pretty sure the check's nice too. So
yeah, yeah, yeah. It doesn't hurt. He's still
doesn't
got to
hurt.
he's got to keep the lights on, Ryan.
Yeah,
Come
man.
on, man. Okay, but I do want to touch on this before we go to the next one, because what I also like about his filmography, and this is where I will give a little more defense to Pete's Dragon, though it is a weaker entry in his filmography, is he keeps wanting to do something different, and I love that when
Yeah.
filmmakers challenge themselves, and
Mhm.
that leads us to A Ghost Story, 2017, and this is his take on a supernatural tale, because it's spoilers, guys, if you didn't already know this. Again, I like to say tough titties. It's not a scary movie, it's not a horror
Mm-mm.
movie.
No.
It's actually, this is, if you haven't seen the common thread throughout his films, and this is part of his signature, it's another character piece. He loves character pieces,
Yep.
and it tells the story of a man who dies in a car crash, awakens in limbo as a ghost, and tries to find the wife he left behind. It stars, oops, shocker, Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. They have good chemistry, and I want to give a full disclosure before we discuss this guy Ryan, because this is my favorite. This is my
Yeah.
favorite of the five. Yeah, there's something about it. It's probably I would say this is arguable, but maybe more of the art house piece. I think a good competitor would, of course, be the Green Knight as his most artistic outing yet. But there's something about Ghost Story that is so human and
Yeah.
told through the scope of a superhuman lens, right? A supernatural lens
Yep.
with the the ghost and the ghost story. And so let's start with plot and narrative. I think that's a good place to start with this, and a little touch on characters.
Okay. Well, plot and narrative, like you said, it is the telling of a ghost that's trying to reconnect with everything he lost. It's that house. It's the love of his life. It's his life, really. And it's really really awesome how this is told, because this is probably one of the best, most natural slow burn films that I've ever watched. And I tell a lot of people that before I tell them to watch it. I'm like, you need to watch this film. Like, especially if it's a person who loves film. It is the epitome of what you're supposed to do with a slow burn.
Ooh, I have a tangent for you. Okay, so yes, slow burns can be captivating, is how I put it, when they're done right. And this is a perfect example of slow but captivating. And the other, I feel like a gold standard is Denis Villeneuve's Arrival,
Hmm.
for slow, but it's so captivating. It
Right,
it
right.
gets under your skin. You want to watch it over and over again. And guys, a ghost story is no different. And like we talked about earlier, again, this is so we should talk about this a little bit before we move on. There is a difference between plot and narrative. A lot of people interchange them all the time. I even do that. I'm very guilty. So don't come after me, Twitter mob. But so the plot is the general beats of the story,
Mhm.
right? And the narrative is how the filmmaker, artist, or whatever the medium is telling that story, is giving you the things. And what I love about this is, unlike his first two films, this one's chopped up, right? It is not linear. It'll go to the present, back to the past, back to the present, back to the past.
Right.
And then we probably, I'm getting ahead of myself again, and then we need to talk about the concept of time in the film. But before we do that, I want to talk about the first thing that touched my eyes, like the first thing I noticed when I rewatched it, and that was the aspect ratio.
Mhm.
It was the box. It was the square. We didn't get a widescreen, and I think me and you both know why. It's intimacy. But tell the good people why a filmmaker would choose something like that.
Well, it's all about, like you said, that narrative. Really, really, really telling. So I shot something for a friend not too long ago in that same aspect ratio.
Ooh, you
Um,
you want to plug it? Is it something we can watch or buy?
it's not something we can watch or buy. It was something.
Ah,
It was something
oh,
that I shot for a school project for him. He
okay.
may still have it, but it's
We
nothing
can
that.
buy it from him, right? He can
Yeah, he
he can
may
sell it
still
on
have it.
Etsy or something.
It was the first thing I did when I arrived back to San Antonio about a year ago, and he was like, "Man, I really need, you're back. Can you shoot this for me? It's for a school project." And I said, "Sure. What's the script? This, that, and the third." And it was about a person that was trapped in a room
Hmm.
with their daughter, and them having to deal with, I guess, the end times.
Okay. So
And
like a dystopian apocalyptic tale.
yes, but it's all in the room and through. Yeah, and kind of through these stories, because it was supposed to be them go outside, and I was like, "Let's just shoot it in the house." And she is kind of putting her to bed for the last time. And he was like, "Cool." And we shot it, and I shot it in CinemaScope, and it was great. And I said, "Man, let's switch this aspect ratio up. Let's get it tighter. Let's make all the shots that we can do that are in frame with them too, because it's so close for them to be together in the master bedroom." I was like, let's just do this. And my inspiration for that was this movie. Yeah, and I think him choosing this aspect ratio was just, the story wouldn't have been told the same way without this aspect ratio. And I think the intimacy between him, everyone who walked in that home, even him even him denying the afterlife, because that's a really cool scene when he's walking
Oh,
down.
the portal opens?
Oh,
Yeah.
man, when it's like, "All right, man, come on in." He's like,
He
not
just
done.
like,
Yeah,
"No."
I'm not done here." So, I think without that aspect ratio, I don't think we would have gotten the same feel. We definitely gotten the same story, but it wouldn't have felt the same. And how I felt when I left, when the credits ran,
Yeah.
that's all that really matters. So to me, if that helped, um, the fans, the listeners, watch this movie and just pay attention to what that aspect ratio does to your mind and how you conceive everything that goes on in the story. Because there's not a lot of dialogue, and I think what we hit on before with that aspect ratio, that helps. That helps bring the story closer to us.
Absolutely. Yeah. Again, well put.
Thanks.
And I'm glad you brought up the the choice scene in the hospital
Mhm.
because we forget that again, this is a visual medium and we don't need a and this is a perfect example. We don't need a lot of dialogue to tell the story that they want to tell. And it's still incredibly captivating. And just like what's a well-known example, something like The Mandalorian, where we don't get to see the face of the actor emote,
Yeah.
through the entire thing, and you're seeing Casey Affleck a little bit through the film, but most of the time he's in this in this sheet as the ghost most of the movie, but he's still acting because every like every choice to just stand still and create space, as you put it, and
Mhm.
let the scene really just be and things of that nature. Remember, that's still a choice. That's still a stylistic choice. There's probably a lot of direction by David, but there's always a team element, and the actors are choosing how to act out the scene too. And so even just like a little bit of a head change or a nod
Mhm.
or a wave of just even how he moved his body in that sheet, it created the character. And I do want to say this. I put this in my notes. This could have easily been silly, guys. Like
Yeah.
on paper,
Yeah.
like this could have been so fucking stupid, because he literally isn't just in a sheet as a ghost the whole film.
Mhm.
But it's done in such a way, again, because this is what separates someone like David Lowery from a lot of other filmmakers is he really makes it work and he still makes it like dramatic and foreboding and
Mhm.
you feel this extreme emotion with almost nothing in between you and the character. Usually we have dialogue and we have a face emoting or a person crying. And I'll put it this way, just to put it in perspective. I don't cry much at movies, and every time I see this, I tear up a little bit at the end. If that puts it in perspective.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something about myself. I I am very passionate, and I cry a lot in movies, man. I cry
Oh, I'm
way too much.
passionate, but sometimes the movie doesn't always get me there, you know? Like I'll tear up a little bit, but I'm not wailing. I'm
I
not I'm
I
not
think,
waterfalls.
yeah, I think I need to see a therapist or something, man. 'Cause I'm balling on all like,
This is the therapy right here,
this is
man. We're
it,
doing
man.
it.
I
Yeah.
thank you for having me, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send the
You're
invoice.
always
I mean,
welcome.
send me the
Yeah.
invoice, yeah. So yeah, the very subtle movements of Affleck in this film and the way the camera was positioned, because there are a lot of full body shots, so you can like
Yeah.
see like from head to toe he's covered, shrouded, but there are a lot of tracking shots
Yeah.
or follow shots where it's down below looking up at Affleck, and you can see his subtle movements of him looking down to them time changing rapidly, and we get this time change by him looking maybe out of the window, and then the camera pans over to the window, and we realize, oh,
We just
um,
had a flash forward.
we just
Yeah.
had a flash forward, and that's how we are literally moving with him, and not really with everyone else. And I think the simple fact that he was almost not in the middle of the frame, but he was in frame all the time, and that passage of time just felt so natural. And those movements, or not moving, the scene that I really really love is when we get our first taste of passing of time, and that is when he's standing in the corner, and it's a very long static shot, and we see Rooney's character walk out of the bathroom, out of the door, and then out
Mhm.
of the bathroom, out of the door. then out of the bathroom, out of the front door again, wearing different clothes, and that's when you're like, "Oh,
Yeah.
yeah," and I was like, "Oh, this is that's when I fell for the movie right there, and I was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this Lowery guy," 'cause at that time, I'm still, who's David Lowery really? I saw
This was my first film that I saw of his
okay,
too.
okay.
Yeah.
So I
So
saw on a whim, Ain't Them Body Saints,
oh, that was your first. So you started in the beginning.
but I saw it before I saw A Ghost Story. So I saw a ghost, I saw it. I know it came out before, but
So
right
wait, you
before.
saw a Ghost Story first or Ain't Them
No, no, no,
Bodies
I'm
Saints
sorry.
first?
I saw Ain't Them Body Saints first, but it was literally 25 minutes in between the films.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, it was 25 minutes. It was during COVID when I was like,
Okay.
"All right." I was like, "Who's this Lowry dude?" And I had got the I got the whiff of I got the whiff of Lowry because A Green Knight was delayed due to COVID. Because I was like, "It's not coming out." Because I mean, when I say I was shitting myself when I saw the trailer, I was shitting myself. So I was like, man, let me see what this Lowry dude's up because I had never heard of him. And then Pete's Dragon came after that because I was dating a young woman with 2 kids, and she was like, the boy reminds me of my young. So I was like, all right, let's watch it.
Let's pull it back. I do have a question for you before we move
Go,
on.
no,
I
no
have to
worries.
ask, you're talking about the time jumps. We're on that. So I have to ask this before we move on, and that is this. Do you believe that time bounced back, or do you think he lapsed the concept of universal time, and that's how he saw himself again at the end?
So this was the question I was going to ask you because I actually have a lot of questions about this film.
We may have to do another episode on Just a Ghost Story because we don't have. I'm looking at the clock. Yeah, just give me one sentence. What do you think it is?
I think time is a construct, and it doesn't matter to a spectral being.
Hmm. Okay.
I think with him staying in limbo, um, just like we see ghosts coming in with, wearing clothes from, 1846, they're just stuck in that loop. They're just stuck in that loop.
I thought it was saying to me, again, in my humble opinion, I thought because we got that big monologue by that hipster guy, I thought time ended. The universe went through its own time lifespan, if you will,
Uh,
and then went back, started over, went back to the Big Bang, and then we started over. But the only I don't know. I really have to dissect this because we would probably see a different history. We're seeing the exact same timelines again.
right.
I'm not sure if that would happen. So interesting point. Anybody listening, tell us what you think. Tweet at us, email us,
Please, I need to
um,
know.
put a comment into his Instagram account. We'll tell you about it again later if you forgot. And that needs to lead us to The Old Man and the Gun,
Ooh,
2018. And again, we're changing genres. This is like an organized crime film, or I would, an easy way to say it is like a heist film, but it is, again, it's more than that. It's another character piece, no surprise, and it tells the story of an aging bank robber named Forrest Tucker that just can't seem to stop his old ways. He just kids is like a drug, man. We also meet a new love interest along the way, and the detective that is just going out of his way as his life pursuit to catch him. Now, what's cool about this one is this is semi based on a true story, and it stars Robert Redford, just like Pete's Dragon. So again, we're seeing that cross pollination again of the actors he likes to choose for his roles, and no surprise, Casey Affleck, Danny Glover, Tika Sumpter, a very happy being a music buff. I'm not the resident film buff, but or film expert, but I'm probably the resident music expert. Tom fucking Waits was in the film, and Sissy Spacek.
yeah,
I only bolded out one thing for this, and then I have a question for you.
sure.
And that the big thing I want to highlight and focus on is again the characters. This was a character piece, and I will start it with this question for you, Ryan. Why do we root for the criminal genius in these kind of films? We know on paper, he's a bad person. He's a bad guy, but we like him. We root for him. Just like what was his name? Danny Ocean in Ocean's 11.
Oh yeah,
Just like I mean, we could do a laundry list of films that have it's usually within this genre. I noticed too. They're always trying to steal something, and they have to have this elaborate plan. And there's these criminal minds, these genius minds, but we root for them. Why?
yeah. Well, I think it's fun, but I also
It is
think
fun.
it's charm. And that is one thing that
Like we
Dan.
live vicariously, maybe through
Oh
them.
yeah, and that's one thing that Danny Ocean and Forrest really had in common was charm. I mean, he that the I think it was the second woman you see that was first day on the job, and he's robbing her, and he's like, "Hey, don't cry." He's like, "You're doing a great job." She was like, "It's my first day, dude," and he's like, "Well, guess what? You're doing fantastic." And she cracks a smile, and I think those are the characters because honestly, if there was a guy, let me tell you who I didn't thieves I didn't root for. I know we're running on time, but the thieves I didn't root for were the guys in the horror film Don't Breathe when they broke into the blind guy's house. I was like, these dudes can get.
I didn't get to see that
You're
one.
not missing
Oh,
much,
yeah.
man. But I
Okay.
mean,
Okay.
they were trash cans. They broke in, so there is I think a big difference in what we root for, what we like, and what we want to relate to, even being bad people. Danny Ocean though stole from a douchebag, and where
Like, yeah, who
Forrest,
they steal from is always, like, worse, right? That's how we can
yeah,
kind of
but Forrest
empathize.
wasn't
They're
though.
the kind of the criminal. So, Forrest was a nice guy in a way.
He was
Like,
a nice guy, but he was
he
stealing
just had a very
from.
specific career choice.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But as far as to talk about the film a little more, the film itself was so beautifully shot, and he used this film grain that gave it a very, very old feel, a very 80s, late 70s feel that I think complemented what we saw so well because we were looking at an older guy who, we find that he's wearing the earpiece, but the earpiece is divisive in itself. This movie was strong. This movie was strong.
I saw it in the Ultra HD, and I think that was a mistake.
Yeah,
There's something about I think film lovers talk about this a lot. There is something to be said about a little grain and a little bit. It creates the fantasy of the film that we're not watching real life. And with
right.
Ultra HD, I felt like they were in the room with me, and it kind of took me out of the movie a little bit.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. And this is actually we'll talk about this in the conclusion section. I feel like anybody listening right now, you have to be seeing a similar thread here is the cinematography over and over again. We're bringing this up. And I think at the heart of who David Lowery is he's a cinematographer that also directs films. That's how I look at him.
Yeah, yeah. That didn't go to school. He didn't go to college, right? Isn't that
Well,
correct?
some artists, I don't know all of that part of his history, but some artists don't need, institutionalized education on their craft to be good at it, right? It's sometimes just
Absolutely.
practice and vision, and
It's
he has
it
a lot
gives
of that.
it gives me hope because I've got vision. I have I'm in
Good.
school for film like a credit or whatever, but
Sure.
I don't have it's not extensive stuff like big school stuff, and it's really really inspiring to see these guys who are just certified geniuses making beautiful work who may have not gone to a higher education. Anywho, um,
Sometimes I see the opposite. I'll see someone that really tried to go down the road of, I usually see it since I study musicians more than anything. I see them, like go to Berkeley or something, and then they drop out. They're like, this isn't really helping me, nurturing my artistic itch. I just need to do it. So I get that. So
is there anything you want to hit on this film in particular?
no, there's not. I really wanted to talk about that, and I wanted your take on why we root for the bad guys, and you did that. So I think we can move on to the movie I think we're both excited to talk about, which is The Green Knight,
Mhm.
2021. And again, it's a change in genre. This is a medieval epic, and this is well, let me give the background. So it tells the story of Sir Gawain and his quest to repay a debt to the Green Knight, of course, and his fantastical trials and tribulations along the way. It stars Dave Battelle, Alicia Vikander, Joel Edgerton, Sarita Chaudhuri, Sean Harris, and Ralph Ineson. And I want to start the conversation with this. So remember I in my outline I would highlight, sometimes plot, sometimes characters, a lot of cinematography, but I highlighted the whole goddamn list on this one. I feel like it came everything he wanted to do, or everything he did do well in his last set of movies, he did perfectly in this one.
Yeah, yeah. This is it's I've seen a lot of film as you can tell.
Mhm.
This is in my top 10 movies of all time, and I'm
Wow.
pretty sure it's gonna move closer to 5 once I kind of
What's
revisit
number
the
1
film.
right now? I'm curious.
Well, the number one is to me the greatest, most important film in cinema history, and that is Raiders of the Lost Ark. And
Ooh,
and
ooh,
but
that's good.
I'm not even gonna Don't get me started. So,
Yeah, we'll go
um,
on the biggest tangent of our
no,
entire
do
career,
not get me started,
of
man.
this whole show's history,
I
right?
will I will say one thing about that that's really cool. Soderbergh did a version of a retelling of Raiders, kind of where he just makes
Yeah.
it black and white, and he
Steven
puts
Soderbergh, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
He makes it black and
For the
white.
for the listeners that don't know, I
Yeah,
have to
sorry.
spell things out sometimes. No,
But
no,
he
you're good.
he
Go ahead,
puts a
go ahead.
techno soundtrack behind the entire movie with no audio, and then he's like, "You could watch this movie like this, and it's still
Give us a
fantastic."
mini review. How did it come out?
It's not having the audio. I mean, Williams is just how can you mute Williams?
Yeah.
And obviously not hearing anything.
He's
It's
a
just
he's a genius, like a Zimmer, like a yeah,
phew, he's like a Nobuo Uematsu.
yeah.
But yeah. Anyway, it was weird, but it was very cool to see, and also that I'm just not a crazy person. That people do see this movie as a
You're not a sadist, right?
yeah,
Right,
yeah.
Ryan?
But
Torturing myself here.
back to the point at hand. Yeah, Arthurian tale, which definitely takes a different telling. I don't think could have been casted any better, to
We
be
should
honest.
tell the good people. So, guys, this is based off of King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, right? And so this is like a side story within that universe, right?
Yep, yep. And what is so beautiful about that is that he stuck to that notion, and that was one of the things that I love. Other than King Arthur, if you were dull and you just didn't realize what you were watching, or maybe you sat down halfway through, you don't get introduced to Merlin, but you know that's Merlin.
Right.
You don't get introduced to any
And
of
he
the
has
other
what,
knights.
seconds at the only the beginning,
Oh,
right? We have a few
only the
seconds at the
beginning.
beginning and
Beginning, and
you're
then there's a
and they just
sh
nod at each other.
yeah,
And
yeah,
you're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I had
Yeah,
to rewatch my second viewing of this. I appreciated the film so much more
yeah,
because if you're not in the right, again, this is a little bit of a slow burn. Let's warn our audience. A little bit of a slow burn. Be in the mood for more of an art house film.
yeah.
But if you are, buckle up. Oh my god.
Whew. Yeah, I knew as soon as we saw the Green Knight actually arrive on Christmas morning, the sound that was used for the Green Knight, the Foley that was used for him, and Foley, for anyone who does not know, is just is sounds made to go with what you're watching in post. So that Foley that was used for him, but when he showed up and everyone grabbed their swords and he walked in on King Arthur, and King Arthur looked over to Merlin, and this is when we get our introduction. It goes red because Merlin's doing some magic shit, and he looks back and he shakes his head like, "Nah, man, put your
Nah.
sword away. Like
Nah.
this ain't what you want, man. This is a fool's game." And we get into basically the story of Sir Gawain, who is next in line because he is blood. He's next in line to really hold to be crowned as king, and he is, lack of a better word, a frat boy. He is. He drinks. He fucks. He sleeps. He was, watching it a second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth time. The very beginning, I didn't understand. In the very beginning, you see a burning, home off in the distance. A guy leaving his assumably wife, grabbing a sword and running off, and then it pans from that scene or pushes in away from that scene to see a sleeping, drunk, or hungover Sir Gawain. And I didn't really get that scene because nothing else really comes up about it, but that was to show us off the gate that this dude is not about that life. He is about being the nephew of the king. He's probably pretty well off. He has sex. He drinks. That's his life. And when the story came on, the question came along to regale us of a tale, he didn't have anything. And that really is what set in motion the urge to beat the Green Knight at his game, which it was just that, a game. Now, I don't know if you have read the original telling of.
I have not, no.
Okay, so there's a lot. We're not going to go too heavy into that because there's a lot. But there's for one, his mother wasn't a witch. She was even kind of barely mentioned in the original.
Mm,
But it's a good thing that that was done that way because it does push the notion of, which you could read my small review on my Instagram page, of that his mother knew that he was not prepared to do anything with the throne, with the Excalibur, with the crown, and not Lancelot. Lancelot was going to crumble basically. So she sends this Green Knight because she knew he was going to jump at the bit to prove himself. She sends that Green Knight to put him on this quest. Now, whether he really, made it through the quest or not is on him. But I thought that was such a great story adjustment and plot telling, or plot setting, by Lowry, because it really set the tale, which is kind of very different from what we're knowing, by Anonymous, whoever wrote the freaking original one. But man, his turning his skills as a director, as you said, all came all came into a point that is the Green Knight, and I couldn't have been happier when I left the theater 4 times. So
Absolute 4, wow, 4 times. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, I feel what I love about David's work is that, I feel like even if you aren't gonna analyze these pieces like me and Ryan does, and we don't expect you to. Don't That's why we do it for you. Is the message at the end of the day will always shine through. And the message, the theme, or the conclusion, what you're supposed to get out of it. And for this piece, to me, is a tale of honor. What is our perception of what honor is? How do we gain it? And how do we be a good person versus what we should be and who we want to be, you
exactly.
know?
Mhm.
And again, we could do a whole show on this, and maybe we did. Maybe it'll come out after this episode. I don't know. Maybe you just have to wait. But I do want to ask Ryan you this question before we move on into the conclusion and kind of wrap this show up. And that is this question: does the Green Knight really behead him in the end? Is it literal or figurative?
No, he doesn't. We see our hero turn tail and run, and we get the depiction of what happens when he arrives back with the full lie, that he defeated the Green Knight, and he is not true, and the lie catches up to him, and he does lose his head at the end, in theory. And that's when he has that flashback, and he comes back to, not flashback, but alternate seeing of what's going to
Mhm.
happen, and at the vision, and at the very very end, when he gets rid of the protective sash, when he comes to terms with what he did, and this is the game that was played, rules laid out for him, and he says, "You know what? I am ready, man. This is the game. This is how it had to happen." And the Green Knight, when he comes down and says, "You know what? Off with your head, man. I cut it off. Like, technically, I did cut off your head. Boom, because I said
So
it."
you're saying when the Green Knight gives him that line at the very end of the film, and then of course it shoots to the title. So we as the audience get to choose, right? What we think happens. Do you think the Green Knight that is, felt that like he learned his lesson and he let him live a more honorable life?
Yeah, I think I honestly, one again, have to respectfully disagree. I think it was very very ambiguous. I think it was straight up like, you passed, kid. Like, you did it. Like, your mom set this shit up for
So
you.
he's still alive in your mind after the credits roll.
He goes home and tells the true story as a man who accepted his fate. He's no longer the coward. He was
Mm.
ready to die. And that's what it did. And the sash was the big thing, because the sash, as you probably remember, was given to his mom like, "Hey, this will keep you from."
And Alicia, well, that's a little bit of a deep dive, but Alicia's character, excuse me, which she
Yes.
plays two roles. So,
Yes.
anyways, go on.
But yes, yes, she gives him the sash and says, "Hey man, this will keep you from any harm, so you don't have to worry about anything." And that's why the sash was taken from him once and then returned to him again. But the sash was the big thing. He was like, I don't need this,
I
because you
don't
know
need
what?
protection
I don't
anymore.
need
Yeah,
protection, man, because
I'm a
if
man.
if I'm gonna freaking die because of what I did, this is what I have to do. And through that, he is now ready to take on the crown. He's now ready to make adult decisions. He's now ready to not drink and be an idiot and an asshole and stuff like that. So no, to solidify the answer, I
Yeah.
think that he did walk away from that. They, shook hands. He jumped back on his horse.
They
You
hugged
know,
it out.
they hugged it out. All right, bro. You're all right, man. But yeah, and he left, and rather he failed some other way, but he was ready to be king.
Okay. I really like that interpretation, and I think that's a perfect place to end the conversation
Cool,
on the Green Knight there.
cool, cool.
And I before we get into the conclusion, I do want to to excitedly announce that, guys, we have another movie coming out soon. We don't know when exactly, but it's another
Yeah.
Disney film. It is Peter
Mhm.
Pan and Wendy, slated to be released on Disney Plus. I think straight to Disney Plus, not theatrically,
Okay.
for this year, 2022. We don't know when, but that's probably a good segue to the conclusion. This, like, we sometimes talk about these kind of artists that are kind of in the middle of their career. I think he's still a middle front. If I were to guess, I feel like he still has a long set of films he wants to do, and I'm excited to see them. And just like I said earlier, I feel like David Lowery to me comes off like he's, at his heart, he's a cinematographer that happens to write and direct films,
Yep.
and they're often character studies.
Yep.
Who It's just like they're character studies that focus on a what I would call a constant longing for something. In his first one, it was love. The second one was family. The third one was connection, or rather reconnection. The fourth one was just to live life, however you see fit. And of course, the last one, just like we talked about, was honor. Let's bring it home, Ryan. Tell the good people, if they haven't got into David Lowery, to do themselves an artistic favor and tell them why.
If you love artsy films that are actually good, because I've seen a lot of artsy films, and people are like, "Man, this movie's art." I was like, "You know what? It was beautiful, but man, it was trash." Dunkirk's one of them, to be honest with you, but that's a
Ooh,
whole nother.
okay. Yeah.
But that's
That's
a
a that's
whole
a
nother.
that's a Christopher Nolan jab, guys,
It,
if you don't
it's
know who did Dunkirk.
it's
Yeah.
beautiful, but it was not good. Anywho,
Yeah,
um,
yeah, okay,
I
I'll give
mean,
you that one. Okay, go on.
but yeah, if you do want to see some art cinema,
Yeah.
especially some art cinema with a budget, go see Lowry movies. Just check them out. They are well shot, well produced, well made, well scored as well, and well written. He loves what he does, and you can see it on film.
There you have it, guys. I couldn't have said it better myself. So there you have it. The career, or the recent career, we still have more to
A
see,
lot
of
more.
Mr. David Lowery from top to bottom. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank my guest Ryan,
Yep,
and
yep.
I want to give you, of course, before we go, a little icing on the cake, a little cherry on top, with what we call the gem of the week. We had a little extra for you guys. So if you don't know what the gem of the week is, it's essentially something we like to talk about here at the end of our shows that doesn't always fit into the scheme of the episode. It may be in our radar in the last day, the last week, last month, but we got to give it to you guys so you guys can dig deeper. I want to keep it short and sweet, because just like I've talked about David Lowery in a different episode, I've talked about Robert Eggers. I think he's in the exact same generation, exact same camp of David Lowery kind of films. He
Hmm.
only has two out, The Witch and The Lighthouse, and he's about to release the Northman here pretty soon. And he is another master of
Yeah.
this new kind of school of filmmakers. And I urge anybody that hasn't got into his work to start with The Witch, and just kind of work your way forward. You'll get through it pretty quick. Same with David Lowery. And yeah, I can't say enough good things. Ryan, what's on your radar, man?
Uh, it's not film, to be honest with you.
Ooh,
So hopefully
ooh,
this is.
oh, a non-associated gem. I love those.
Yeah,
Give it to
this
us.
this is a PS5 game called Returnal, and
Okay, I was on the fence about that guy.
yeah,
Sell it
Returnal.
to me, just me now.
Oh no, man! Returnal is it's great and short. It's about a woman who gets stranded on a basically Groundhog's Day. Every time she crashes on this hostile planet that changes every time she dies and crashes again. It is fucking beautiful, and it is a chopped up, broken story that's told to you through a lot of playing,
Yeah.
but it is damn strong.
God, yeah, this has been on my radar for a while. I was on the fence because
Get
I'm
it?
not a big player of Souls kind of games, or Bloodborne kind of games that's like crazy difficult. So I was kind of waiting to see, honestly, when it got cheaper. I did read this. So I read, as much as I don't read fiction or nonfiction, just traditional books a lot. I do read excessively, and it's always like small articles about random stuff. And I did learn that the PlayStation. Plus and Now is going to be collapsed into one service that's going to
Yeah.
roll out later in the summer. And this is one of the free games, so I'm kind of waiting for it to come out on PlayStation Plus or Now or whatever the fuck they call it at the end of the day.
Yeah, Plus Now or something like that. But yeah, man, when it does, I can't wait to see what you think about it because it is game of the year for whenever this game can be awarded. In my opinion, it is one of the better games in the last 5 years I played.
Okay, we may have to do an episode on Returnal one of these days. But until then, you can of course check out some of our stuff at underscore Novo underscore Day, and Day is DE, and at Novo Day Media. You can check out our website, novodayproductions.com. There you'll find things like the Entropy Sessions, Post Meridium, Adulteration, Cancel Culture Lotto, a lot more to come. And of course, this show. So don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, hit the notification bell, do all the things. Please rate and review. If you're listening to this on YouTube, you can, of course, comment. And if you'd like to sponsor our little love child here, you can reach out to us at novodaymedia@gmail.com. And again, to reach Mr. Ryan Selvey, how did they get a hold of you, my man?
Right now, you can reach out to me on Instagram, EATC, like eat, C like cinema, dot like .com film. So that's EATC dot films. That is my personal page. I post some of the stuff I do, my videography stuff. I also post personal things as well. I will have a
Can
website.
they hire you for services as well?
You can definitely hire me for services, or if
Cool.
you are local. So reach out to me if you need anything done videography wise. I can, from weddings to birthdays to
You name it. Yeah.
mixers, whatever, or actual passion projects where we have scripts, direction, DP, all that stuff. Holler at me.
Hey, I love it. Holler at him. Okay, guys. Until next time, be good to each other. And as always, good luck and Godspeed. We love you.
Art of the Beholder is brought to you by Novo Day Productions. Created and hosted by Novo Day and the Novo Day Collective. Facebook.com/Novo Day Media, at Novo Day Media on Twitter and Instagram. Music by A Company. Facebook.com/ACOMusic123. ACO on Spotify. Logo design by Tom Justice, JESTUS, of thejusticecompany.com. And executively produced by Clayton Anderson. All rights reserved.